First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge, particularly in NAIDOC Week, I'm hosting the meeting from Aboriginal land of Camaragal people of the Eora Nation. Pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the pivotal role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders continue to play in our Australian community. We're here tonight to discuss electric vehicles. We are Zero Emissions Sydney North. We're volunteers. We're also hearing from Anton, sustainability expert, co-founder of the Good Car Company. We're particularly discussing electric vehicles that don't cost the earth. So we're going to be discussing electric vehicles, but we're also particularly discussing our bulk buy. I'll just introduce Anton briefly and then we'll hear from him shortly. So Anton is the co-founder and director of Good Car Company. As well as an electric vehicle enthusiast, Anton's a project manager and sustainability expert. For the past 15 years, he's been delivering international solar PV projects and residential and commercial energy efficiency projects. Previously worked for recognised NGOs, Renew Sustainable Living, Tasmania, and he's a director of Good Life Permaculture. And Anton's driving passion is working with people to adopt low emissions lifestyles. So why are we here? Electric vehicles. They're the future. They're starting to come to Australia. People have got lots of questions and are really interested in affordable options as well as the brand new options. Matt King, our Energy and Environment Minister, says this is the best car ever driven. The running costs are virtually zero. It's great value for money and it's good fun to drive. So welcome. Tonight, between 6 and 7, including time for Q&A, we're going to touch briefly on who we are, why people would switch to an electric vehicle, how electric vehicles actually work, how we charge our electric vehicles, including home and out and about, which is a really crucial question for a lot of people, what EVs are available in Australia. And then we'll go to Anton, who's our guest EV expert. He's going to be particularly talking about sustainability, affordable EVs, and how and why we would participate in an EV bulk buy. Lots of time for questions. And then I'll end by 7 just with a couple of other things that we can do to accelerate our transition to zero emissions. You're very welcome to leave at 7 if you need to. You're also very welcome to stay on a bit longer. Anton was great at our last session, staying on and answering further questions, so do feel free. Okay, Zero Emissions Sydney North. If people haven't heard of us, we're a volunteer group. We're focused on practical ways to help reduce emissions. So there's a whole lot of information available online and we're all kind of aware of it. But what we particularly wanted to do and are doing is look at what are the main sources of emissions and what are the main solutions. So people that want to look at the big picture things can look at those first. We are one of the zero carbon communities of Beyond Zero Emissions, which is a national group. There's over 100 of us now, and we're all focused on kind of practical things that we can do in our community. You might have heard of Beyond Zero Emissions Byron or Hepburn or in the Bowral area. There's quite a few rural groups, and we're really proud to be one of the inner city groups. One thing that we're trying to do is really help people have a sense of community and common goals and achievement towards reducing our emissions. So we're particularly focused on Northern Beaches and North Shore. We're working with Mossman Council, Northern Beaches Council, and starting to liaise with other councils in the area as well, including Hornsby, Hunters Hill, North Sydney. We're doing what's our mission, or vision, is we can all be part of a sustainable community for ourselves and for future generations. And how are we helping to achieve that? By swift practical action on the main sources of emissions. If you have a look at the graph, you'll see on the pie chart, the main source of emissions in our area is actually electricity. And that's because so much of our electricity comes from fossil fuels. And we will touch on that at the end in terms of a couple of things we can all do to reduce any of our emissions that are coming from electricity. But then beyond electricity, 30% of it's from our transport. So that's obviously a pretty big chunk of emissions. And there's also that issue that as so many of us are trying to move away from fossil fuels, it just feels really incongruous to be filling your car up with petrol. So there's philosophical, environmental, and cost reasons that people are interested in EVs. So we're working with local government. We've also got programs for business, community groups, schools, and individuals. We're also now doing a regular stall at Mossman Markets. That's once a month, and looking at doing another one in the Northern Beaches. So please look out for us and let us know if you're interested. And last of all, at the end, I'll touch on solar and renewable. We have a couple of business relationships. They pay thank you payments. That funds our work in terms of practical things like flyers and printouts. But more importantly, it's funding our community fund. So one of the things Zero Emissions is doing is collecting for doing a solar install on a local charity. And we hope to keep doing these. So do one, save up, do another, do another. And we've actually got our first one worked out. We did a site visit. We're really looking forward to telling people about that soon, because basically everyone that's part of Zero Emission Sydney North is then part of helping put solar on these charities. 25 years plus of clean energy, significantly lower power bills, and significantly more money towards their cause, which is great. So why switch to an electric vehicle? First up, who's actually got one? Put your hand up if you've got an EV. I know a couple of people mentioned having one. Yep. And who's test driven an EV? Has everyone had a test drive? Or, yep. Have you felt that amazing acceleration where it's almost seamless acceleration? That's quite incredible. So why switch to an electric vehicle? One really main reason is financial benefits. So apart from the initial price, once you actually own an EV, they're significantly cheaper to run than a traditional car. So looking at average driving, average Australian drives about 15,000 kilometres a year. Petrol's costing them a couple of $1,000s a year, and we know that's increasing. An EV is costing around $600 to charge to do that same driving, or it's even less if you've got rooftop solar. I've spoken to some people who basically only charge at home. Once they've got solar panels on their roof, they're effectively charging for free. There's also no petrol station anxiety because you can charge from any power point. Also, an EV's got significantly less moving parts, doesn't have an internal combustion engine, doesn't have spark plugs, oil filters. There's far less to go wrong, but there's far less maintenance time and less maintenance cost. And that's adding up to potentially a few thousand a year as well. And then some friend who's particularly financial noted a third financial point, which is that currently EVs are depreciating far less than petrol cars. So when he factored in lack of depreciation, he said he was, thousands of dollars a year ahead from his EV rather than petrol car. What about the environment? So across Australia, if we all switched to active and electric transport, we'd eliminate 6% of greenhouse gas emissions just from that one change. There's also another major issue with exhaust pollution. It's actually a major health issue. So it's causing about 1,700 deaths each year in Australia. And health costs of exhaust pollution are estimated at around 3.3 billion in Australia, which is just extraordinary. So switching to an EV or any form of electric transport and active transport is giving us all a significantly cleaner, quieter community. Dr. Kim Liu, who's well known as a co-chair of Doctors for the Environment, loves her Nissan Leaf. She points out that Australian cars have got high polluting fuels, and this increases heart attacks, strokes, lung cancer, among other things. She particularly chose an electric vehicle, Nissan Leaf, for pollution-free driving. And she says, I've got rooftop solar and a battery. My car runs on the sun, it's free energy. So she used to spend about $2,000 a year on petrol alone, plus her electricity costs. And now she's spending about $750 a year, and that's her house and her car running costs combined. So significant savings, and then obviously loving that it's zero emissions. Does anyone have any questions so far? If you have questions as we go, we do have time for questions at the end, but also please feel free to pop them into the chat, because we're going to collate all the questions from the chat, as well as have time to ask questions yourself. So how do EVs work? As you probably know, traditional cars have got an internal combustion engine. They're running on petrol or diesel, it's stored in a fuel tank, and then it's burnt in the engine to produce power. But this is also producing exhaust fumes. So electric vehicles have an engine that's powered by electricity. Electricity is stored in a battery, and the battery can be recharged from any electrical supply. Often that charging is from a renewable energy source, and plus, once the car's in motion, there's no exhaust fumes. If you think of the congestion in cities, around schools, etc., it's just wonderful to think that there's just no exhaust fumes coming out. You might have heard people mention hybrid, plug-in hybrid. So a traditional hybrid has a battery plus an internal combustion engine plus a fuel tank. And the battery is recharged by the engine. Excuse me. An example of that's the Toyota Prius, quite well known. Plug-in hybrids are actually somewhat well known in Australia, including, for example, the Mitsubishi Outlander. So a plug-in hybrid has a battery and an engine and a fuel tank. It's powered by the battery first, and then the engine is the backup. The internal combustion engine is the backup if the battery runs out. So this car has both a battery and an internal combustion engine in it. Way of the future is just the pure battery electric vehicle, BEV or EV. So electric only, no internal combustion engine, no fuel tank. It's exclusively powered by the energy stored in the battery. Jay Asper, dentist and a member of Australian Parents for Climate Action, loves his Hyundai Ioniq. He particularly loves his EV because of the performance. He says, I love the instant torque, the fast acceleration, the zero emissions. He also loves the low maintenance and costs. So he says, I charge at home using my solar, so that's free. And then I use low cost charging options when I'm out and about. And I spend less than 1/6 of my past petrol costs. But I think talking to Jay, a lot of it is about the performance as well. So how do I charge my EV? Where? How long is it going to take? When? And what happens when I'm out and about? These are all really common questions. So an EV is fully electric. Never need to visit a petrol station again. Among EV owners, and this is around the world as well as in Australia, 80% of charging is done at home. So you simply plug your EV into your power point, or you can get a home charging station for faster charging. It's kind of like coming home and plugging your phone in. And if you charge overnight, Generally speaking, you're going to wake up with a full battery in the morning. So we often talk a lot about how long it takes to charge. But as an EV owner, people just plug it in and wake up to a full battery. PlugShare's map shows us all the charging stations around Australia, and there's an increasing number, which is absolutely fantastic. But there's already 2,300 public charging stations, and over 50 of them are fast charging stations. And good news for anyone that lives in or near Mossman or comes through Mossman, we're getting an ultra fast charger soon, which I'll explain in a moment, but that's some really fast charging. So public chargers Australia-wide, shows you where they are. It's the PlugShare map, and EV owners download the PlugShare app and have access to all of that information. Great information, including what type of charger, what speed, and things like that. So how long does it take to charge an EV? It depends on the type of charger you've got and how big your engine is, how big the battery is, among other things. But broadly speaking, charging at home on what's called level 1 charger give you kind of 7.5 to 15 kilometres an hour. So that's looking at least an overnight charge. Or you can buy a relatively inexpensive home wall charger, and that'll get you up to, say, up to 50 kilometres an hour. So you can top yourself up or get a full charge overnight. Out and about, there's level 2 or level 3. Level 2, you're looking at 40 to 120 kilometres an hour. Level 3, you're looking at really fast. So an ultra fast charger will give you 70 kilometres in 10 minutes. So some of this is to fill your car up. Other times it's just to fill your battery up, put a certain charge on your battery and then head on to your next destination. But those ultra fast chargers are particularly exciting to think that you're getting a full charge in maybe 30 minutes. Why did Gail buy her EV? So Gail's got school-age children and they bought it to be their second car. Most of their driving Monday to Friday and on weekends is local, picking up kids, shopping, sport, etc. They found it absolutely ideal, significantly cheaper to run, plug it in overnight, off-peak pricing, or plug it in during the day and charging from solar, either way saving heaps of money. They bought it because they thought it was the right thing to do, and they're now finding that they use it for almost all their driving. So what's available in Australia? There are a lot more available overseas than in Australia. These are some of the main ones. So at the more, broadly speaking, price is linked to the range, battery size and range. So for example, at the more economical end, we have, say, the Hyundai Kona, Hyundai Ioniq. The Ioniq's around kind of low to mid 50s, which is around 300 kilometres of range. Ioniq around mid 60s, gives you around 400 kilometres of range. And then escalating up the pricing ladder up to, say, Teslas, where you're getting, say, around 500 plus kilometres of range, but then you're paying 150,000 plus for it. One of the main issues with any of the cars on that pricing table is that they're all brand new. Now, some people don't want to buy a brand new car for ethical, environmental reasons, others for economic reasons, or both. And what we particularly wanted to do at Zero Emissions was open up EV ownership for more people. So absolutely delighted to be liaising with the Good Car Company, because their current sole focus is increasing EV ownership by giving people more affordable options. David Can from the Adelaide EV Association loves EVs. He's a multiple EV owner. He says, I've owned 3 EVs, first and second hand Nissan Leaf, He bought it as a shopping runabout and literally never used his petrol car again. Then he wanted a longer range EV, so he bought a new Hyundai Ioniq. Done over 20,000 kilometres, had it annual services, and he says it's never had a spanner on it in terms of no parts, no replacements, nothing going wrong. And then same with his Tesla Model 3, done over 10,000 kilometres and hasn't needed any servicing or repairs. David's quick to point out these cars are shared by the family as well. He hasn't just got 3 of them sitting there for him. But yeah, he absolutely loves EVs for performance, maintenance, etc. Well, that's it from me. And while I am happy to take questions on my part, Anton will expand on what I've said, go into a lot more detail, and is also the expert. So I'll basically hand over to Anton. We'll hear from Anton, and then please ask any and all questions. I'm happy to answer them, and Anton is even better placed to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ursula, and hello everybody for coming out on, well, didn't actually have to come out, but thank you for attending here on a lovely Wednesday evening. I'm just going to share a screen, do a presentation, and yeah, totally happy to run through questions that have been collected in the chat, or whatever gets thrown up at the end. I am an EV expert. There are other EV experts out there as well. So there's an organisation called the Australian Electric Vehicle Association, and it's a members-based group, which has got lots of fact sheets and information. So if you're looking for a reputable third-party source, and there's also the Electric Vehicle Council, which is kind of an industry body of EV manufacturers and supporters, which is another source of information as well. So I'm just going to share my screen and we will get into this. Okay, so my name's Anton, and with Anthony, who's in the green shirt in this image, and Sam with the beard, we started the Good Car Company a couple of years ago now, and we had the express aim of trying to make electric vehicles affordable and mainly that was about decarbonising transport. We all come from environmental backgrounds rather than car sales as a background, and it was definitely, we were trying to do something to address the climate emergency we're in. And we've got about a decade to reduce emissions in half. And that's just to meet our Paris obligations. It's not long, and it's a lot of emissions we've got to drop. And what is amazing is at the moment we've got renewables, which are sitting there ready to go, whether it's on your rooftop or in solar or wind farms or what have you, or pumped hydro storage or battery storage. That technology is sitting there ready to go. And electric vehicles are there ready to scale right now. So those two things can get us almost halfway in the next decade. It's quite amazing that we've managed to have those bits ready to go. Things like solving concrete, landscape emissions, they're much harder cookies to cut, whereas renewables and EVs are remarkably simple swap outs. And that's what attracted us to that area. There was a recent survey of potential EV owners, and it showed that about half of the people who wanted to buy an EV didn't want to spend more than $30,000 on them. And that leaves them in a pickle because, as you can see from Ursula's side, there's no new EVs in that sort of price range. Traditionally, the approach has been is you wait for a second-hand market. Well, there's no new EVs coming in, so there's no second-hand market to produce affordable vehicles. The next approach we've been waiting for is governments to lead the way by purchasing electric vehicles for their fleets. And then in 2 years' time, they become available in the second-hand vehicle market. No governments in Australia have meaningfully purchased EVs for their fleets, even though they're existing there ready to go. I think South Australia and the ACT are going to be the first to jump in that direction at the moment. So we've had to look around the world and basically find where we can find second-hand electric vehicles to create a second-hand EV market from scratch. And our research led us to the New Zealand example. So in New Zealand, they've had much more easier and simpler and more relaxed rules on importing cars from other jurisdictions. And in New Zealand, there's about 15,000 Nissan Leafs zipping around on the roads there, which weren't sold by car dealers in New Zealand. Instead, they were imported from Japan. There were around 400,000 Nissan Leafs manufactured to this date, and about 100,000 of those are in Japan or were sold into the Japanese market. They drive on the same side of the road as us. And from introducing them into the New Zealand car market, a lot of the troubleshooting and issues that might have arisen with electric vehicles have been solved through that process. So there's great tools for analysing the state of the battery health, which is a key criteria. There's great tools for converting language to make it present as an English manufactured car, so it's not reading in Japanese, for example. There's great processes for chargers, firmware updates, and even we can now replace the battery packs on cars as an aftermarket service rather than relying on Nissan to be able to do that. That problem has been solved from the New Zealand jurisdiction, as well as in some other places around the world as well. So we've set out to create a second-hand car market from scratch. And what we've also done is tapped into our community and your community as well. So this image shows us with 24 of our first customers. This is a community bulk buy we ran in December last year, and then delivered cars through the beginning of the COVID lockdown, which made it all a bit more interesting. Learned a lot of what happens with supply chains in that period. And we also made a lot of great friends through that process. And the bulk buy activity has a few awesome benefits. And one of them is we get to talk directly to people like yourselves. What's also great about it is it changes the narrative. So each one of you will talk to your friends, your colleagues at work, and other people you meet around the place, your relatives and so forth. When a local council hears that there's now 50 EVs and you start bringing them wanting a charger to plug them into, they start working on that infrastructure. The electricity utilities start paying a lot more attention and making sure that they've got some forward planning to work out how EVs are going to go into the network. And when Matt Keane needs to make an announcement about EVs and how they're going to be deployed and how they're going to promote them, they've got a case study to say, hey, North Sydney is doing a great job on this. How can we move this forward as well? So there's a lot of policy and advocacy benefits from doing a bulk buy, which I think is really, really important. We also do save a little bit of money on the actual purchases, but those other items I think are much more valuable than saving some pennies on a car. And that comes from an advocacy background. This is Rosie, and she's our #1 customer. Indeed, she was our first customer, so that's why she gets to be called our #1 customer. And she and her family bought an EV from an ethical background. They were wanting to save climate for themselves and their children and so forth. Now, I think this is a market which hasn't been approached by traditional auto manufacturers. I don't think they've been thinking about a safe climate when they've been selling cars. This is something different about electric vehicles, and I love to see this get tapped into more meaningfully. Before I zoom on, what's interesting is she's really come to actually enjoy having a car and has turned into kind of a car person out of this. We've been having conversations in the past, and Ursula, last time we were on here, was talking about drag races she saw on Fight for Planet A. People who you wouldn't think would get engaged in this space start getting engaged, which is quite interesting. She likes the seat warmers, which works for a Hobart environment. Jeremy is probably the other main type of customer we see, and he's much more focused on the tech story. Wanting a car of the future, something he wants to know what's happening under the bonnet, and is liking how electric vehicles are just better from a technical perspective. So they change gears. Well, they don't change gears. It's just smooth from 0 to 100. There's no interruption in between. Even with an automatic petrol car, it goes while it's changing gears. Here, there's just none of that happening. So from a driving experience and from a technical perspective, that's what he's really, really enjoying. This is Ashi and her partner, Mike, and she provided us some great feedback on the processes on our first bulk buy and was very happy on the transparency that we provided. And it's something we're really keen on providing you is telling you about the cars, warts and all. There's some things which are great about electric cars, there's some things which aren't so great, and you may as well know them because you'll work that out before too long. So we try and be very transparent in our process. And having bought cars before and houses and all of that, she thought this was the best experience of any purchase of any actual substantial size she'd had in her life. So I'm pretty happy with that. So we've got a few different models of cars available, and we're looking to bring in more cars, but these are the ones, more different models, but these are the ones we've got available at the moment. So this is base model Nissan Leaf. This shape of car were made between 2011 and 2017 in this shape, but they came in different battery capacities. So there's a 24 kilowatt hour, which gives you about 120 kilometers of driving, and a 30 kilowatt hour, which gives you around 160 kilometers of driving. They have a boot. It's quite roomy inside. They're a bit of a TARDIS of a vehicle in terms of the space inside, and we encourage people to go for a test drive and get inside one. We can fit tow racks on the back, so for carrying bikes if people are into those sort of outdoor activities. Interestingly, if you put bikes or canoes and that sort of thing on the roof, there's a lot of windage, and it can reduce the mileage by about 20% on the vehicle just by putting those things on your roof. Putting them on the back of the car reduces it down to like 3 to 5%, so almost negligible. So if people are into having that extra functionality, that's the way to approach it. We also have, oh, somebody's watering in the garden. I just got surprised. We've also got a newer build of Nissan Leaf. So these started being manufactured in 2017. These are the type you can buy at the Nissan dealership down the road now. So you could go down there and buy one like this now. So if you want a car now and you're prepared, please go ahead. They come in 2 battery sizes. So there's a 40 kilowatt hour, which gives around 240 kilometers of driving. And we have a model which you can't actually buy in Australia, which is a 62 kilowatt hour battery. So that gives you about 350 kilometers of driving. Interestingly enough, this vehicle and the previous one are pretty much the same dimensions. So if you park them side by side, they almost look identical. When you take them apart, they look completely different. The internal dimensions are very similar. Some of the internal appointment is different, and the newer model's got some fancier trim and fancier like heads-up display, the headsets, that sort of thing. Once again, there's roomy seats. I'm 6'5". Might not be able to tell over Zoom, and I can sit in the front seat of the car without hitting my head on the roof. So the back seat, I have to tip my head. So in terms of the roominess, it's quite a spacious vehicle. We also do a little, it's called an ENV 200. It's a caddy van equivalent. So it can fit a pallet in the back as a light commercial vehicle, or it can be configured as a 7-seater people mover car. So that's another option out there, which can fit some different usage scenarios. So not everybody's wanting a sedan, not everyone wants a van, not everybody wants an SUV, not everybody wants a ute. We're slowly building out the type of models that fit all the different usage scenarios, and it will be built out. Whether and when they become available, we'll present them. So why we think we are the good car company, apart from calling ourselves that name, is we've got models that we can't get from other dealerships in Australia, the vans and the 62 kilowatt hour Leafs. We can save money on a like-for-like purchase. We do the leading second-hand warranties for battery and for mechanical warranties. And we also have a 30-day return policy. So if you go and get a car from us and it doesn't actually fit your lifestyle, which is a real thing, it might not be just might not fit how your life ends up being, you can return it to us and we give you back your money. And we can also do battery replacements, which no other supplier in Australia is doing that at this point. So just a update on the rough price points for the models. This was in the current of October 2020. By the time we get to you in February, this will probably be updated because we purchase at auction and prices move depending on the exchange rate and depending on the current situation. So if Corona goes really bad, prices drop. If there's going to be an economic boom in New Zealand, prices will probably go up, but that's where we're at the moment. So base level car, we're guaranteeing it'll be less than $20,000. We're seeing prices between $18,000 and $20,000 at the moment. For the 30 kilowatt hour Leaf, guaranteeing less than $28,000, and we've seen a range from about $25,000 to $28,000 on those, and so forth. They go up in price on the battery capacity because that's the driving determinant of the price of the car. Interestingly, in this chart, we provide two ranges. And an electric vehicle is more efficient when driving around in town than it is on the open highway, which is the opposite of a petrol car. Getting your head around that will serve you really well for when you're trying to work out what model you want and planning your Christmas drive-a-thon, where you're driving to visit the Rellos in Port Macquarie or wherever you're going. On the highways, they go less far than in town. So different models is proportionally different, but just getting your head around that concept's well worthwhile. And that is mainly because extra windage. So you drive the car faster, the wind resistance is slowing down the car, and that takes extra energy as opposed to the car's efficiency of its engine. So when we're doing a bulk buy, we do things like this, which is trying to create an informed customer. So whether you choose to purchase an electric car from us, choose a new model, choose to get an electric push bike or catch the ferry more, whatever it is, whatever you can do to decarbonise your transport, that's a great thing to do, but providing you with the right information so you're informed. From there, we sign a contract and ask for a significant upfront payment. And it's around half of the cost of the car upfront. And that's what enables us to bring over a lot of cars at the same time, because otherwise the cash flow issue for us can destroy the model. We purchase a car, we inspect a car, we check its battery health, we check its mechanical condition. We purchase the car and do all the steps to bring a car over to you. And along the way, we provide you with timely updates. So when we purchase a car, you get some images of the car and the details of it. We'll let you know when it's being shipped, when it arrives, when it goes through compliance, when it's being sent to your city, all of those steps along the way. So it's like a parcel tracking a car across the planet is how we're trying to set up the whole process for you. And then finally, there's a final payment just before delivery of the car. And that we'll have to determine how we actually do the delivery in North Sydney. Most likely it'll be picking up from a warehouse or somewhere in a central location, whatever suburb makes sense. So in terms of actions, if you're interested in out of this, we have cars you can buy now if that's of interest, and also registering for the bulk buy if you haven't already. So you can go on our website, put in your details, and then we'll provide you with the information going forward. At the moment, we're working on delivering it in March next year. This year put a lot of people's plans on hold. I was expecting to do a lot more this year than I have, but we're planning on delivering the actual bulk buy in March next year. And I might have talked very quickly then. I hope I haven't talked too quickly. And just if anybody wants to get in contact, please give me a bell, send an email, or have a look on our website because there's a lot more information there. And I'm totally happy to answer any questions that people have or keep the conversation going as well from this point.
Thank you so much, Anton. That was absolutely fantastic. And letting people know, we send you a follow-up we send the zero emission slides, we send the Good Car Company slides, we should be able to send the recording, and we also send you some key links. And there's more information, there's place to leave your details, you name it, it's available. So we'll send that all in a follow-up email. Thank you so much, Anton, for your information, and everyone for your questions. People are so engaged. And Charlotte's been doing a magnificent job of collating them. We are going to, so they're actually in categories.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's amazing. We're going to go through them. As I said before, I will stop questions a couple of minutes to 7 just to do a final wrap up. But anyone that wants to stay on can. So questions, let's go. Charging technology, Anton. So Jules, Kim and Paul all had charging questions.
Mm-hmm.
Jules asked about certain chargers only suit certain types of cars. For example, Tesla has their own chargers. Do you want to speak to that quickly, and also what the Leaf can use?
Okay, yeah. So I wish the world would have worked this one out by this point in time, but we haven't managed to work out the same plug for all electric cars. And it's landed on 3 main types of plugs. So Tesla is in its own universe. It's like a Apple iPhone. It's just doing its own thing. We then have what's called a Type 1 charger, which goes into a Nissan Leaf, and generally the Asian manufactured cars, and generally the European manufactured cars have what's called a Type 2 charger. In a home situation, you will generally get with our cars and with others, you'll get something which you can just plug into a power point and plug into your car. So any power point becomes a charging station for you. If you get something else installed at your home, you will get it hardwired and dedicated for your vehicle. So that's relatively easy. When you're out and about is when the issues come up. Not great big issues. On PlugShare, you can look at the app and it will tell you what charge station takes what charge cable. So you'll familiarize yourself with that app and click on it, open it up and go, oh, okay, it's got this sort of fast charger, I'm okay. The publicly available fast chargers, which NRMA has put in a lot of, are compatible with both the Asian cars and the European cars. So they make it so that they basically got one petrol Bowser with a cable on each side, one for each car. So they've been thinking about that ahead. Occasionally you will come across, I'm just going to share a little image for you because I knew this sort of this question would come up, and I will show you a picture of what we're going to see more and more around. Which is this sort of situation. So you see a bollard and a little charge port on it, and it needs a cable like this. So every car brings its own cable to plug into those sort of charge ports. It's relatively straightforward, just have one in the boot. So for most people's use, and you'll always find an exception, is you have the cable that comes with the car, you can plug it into a power point. You might want one of these in your boot, or you probably don't need one. And then when you go out and use fast chargers, they come with their own cable. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you very much. Jules, let us know if you've got any more questions on that point. And then Kim asked, do the charging stations run off solar?
Not directly. There's a bunch of locations where they're grid connected. So there's grid connected solar and there's a charger there, but not as a independent system.
I think it means grid renewable energy. I'm taking that question to mean.
Yep. I just recently did a trip, we're in Tassie, did a trip over, there's basically a charger attached to the bottom of a hydro power station in the centre of Tassie, which was a very, very good electrons to put in the car.
Brilliant. And then obviously a lot of people that have electric vehicles also have solar on their own roofs, or they buy their renewable energy from a renewable energy provider. So either way, you're sourcing it from renewable energy. Yeah.
Yep, and depending on the solar you've got on your roof, some solar inverters have the ability to have a discretionary circuit, so it will put the power into your car before it will send it to the grid.
That was one of the questions. That was Paul's question. Yep.
So a bunch of solar edge inverters have that capability. You can also buy an aftermarket charger that you put on your house, which will have that functionality built into the charger, and that's called a Zappy.
Oh,
yep.
Thank you.
It's pretty cool. Probably only makes sense if you park your car at home when the sun's shining. If you're a person who's got your car out during the day because you drive to work and you just bring it home at night, you're not getting much advantage out of that situation.
And then Paul on charging asks, do ultra-fast chargers require a more modern EV?
The ultra-fast, yes. There's some ultra-fast going in, which they're just building them because they expect EVs to be built that can take it. And there's one which is 350 kilowatts DC, which is just an astoundingly ridiculous large amount of energy. I think there's one Porsche that can take that at the moment, and there's no other vehicles that can do it.
What about the 50 kilowatt ultra fast?
Yeah, all of the Nissan Leafs take 50 kilowatts DC, which is fast. It still takes time. So you're looking at about 250 kilometers of driving for every hour you have it plugged in to the charger.
Yeah. And then many EV drivers have mentioned you might stop for half an hour and just get half an hour worth of charge and go on to your next destination rather than hanging around.
Yeah, you tend to get enough to get to the next place. Yep.
And then Jules asked, have you seen queues for chargers and are there more chargers coming? And just from personal experience, Jules, on that, we're speaking to councils, and this is putting chargers in is on all councils' radar. So there are multiple sources of new chargers. There's businesses and councils, and then I'll let Anton speak to that as well.
Yes, I've seen queues, and it's terrible when somebody's in front of you with the car you sold them, and you've got to wait for them. But once that's occurred to me. Interestingly, you will normally charge at home in most scenarios. So it's going to be better for the battery of the car, it's going to be better for your wallet, and it's going to be better for your time scheduling to charge at home. If that doesn't work, then you're stuck with the commercial chargers. And not many queues. I will expect that on Boxing Day, we're going to break the charges every year for the next 10 years.
Got you. Other than that, we're all good. Yes.
We're all good. And the service stations are broken on Boxing Day as well. So
this is true.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Okay, we've then got some more solar at home charging questions. Paul asked about the setup. So your solar charges your EV first, which is great. And then Katrina's asked, do you need 3-phase power at home, or is 1-phase power fine? Single-phase power okay?
Yeah, so you definitely don't need 3-phase power. If you are going to be getting a really big capacity battery, and if you're a traveling salesperson and have got a 500 kilometer range car, you might want to go for 3-phase. For most normal scenarios, it's totally unnecessary. Yep. Single phase is fine. It's a 30 amp connection, so it's less than your oven for the connection to the car.
That's a good comparison. Thank you. There's quite a few battery questions. So we've got 5 minutes until 7 o'clock. We've got quite a few battery questions. including from Ingeborg, Katrina, Richard. Got a couple of range questions, roof and safety. We will answer all the questions. But for people that need to go at 7, I will just flick back to our last couple of slides and wrap up, and then anyone is welcome to stay. We've got all those questions that have already been asked listed, and once we've answered those, we can just open the mic and go through questions as well. So just in terms of saying goodbye to anyone that does need to leave for 7 o'clock, I'll just quickly go back on and share my screen.
Can I just answer a question that I can see there, which on the charging before we go?
No. There's quite a few questions, that's all. So yeah, yes, go for it.
There was just some, just following up on that topic. One was, can it take 100 kilowatt CHAdeMO? And the answer is no, it takes 50 kilowatts. And there was a question about how much does it cost to charge in public chargers? And that varies by the supplier. The most expensive I've seen is the equivalent of the cost of petrol. And normally it's about half the cost of petrol in terms of the kilometres travelled for the cost of the electricity. It's the most meaningful comparison I can get at the moment. Yeah.
Actually, it's a good point too. If anyone has to leave at 7 and has a question, do you want to flick your camera back on and give us a wave? Because if you absolutely can't stay, we'd obviously want to answer your question before you go. I can't see anyone waving or putting anything into chat. So I'll do our last couple of slides and then everyone is welcome to stay on for the existing questions and further questions. Okay, so Anton, thank you so much. It's absolutely invaluable, and thank you in advance for all the other questions that you're going to answer. A lot of us are very looking to get an electric vehicle as our next car. Some people right now, some people soon. What else can we do to reduce our emissions? Actually, a couple of straightforward things we can do that significantly reduce our emissions. So obviously, the one we've been discussing tonight is switch to active transport, electric transport. Bang, you've cut your transport fuel emissions to 0. As well as the bulk buy, there is a buy now list, and we'll send you information about both of those. So if you doesn't suit you to wait for the bulk buy, you're very welcome to access the buy now list, which has still got affordable EVs. Another great thing you can do is get solar on your own roof. The price of solar has gone down, broadly speaking. The quality has gone up. We're now looking at 20, 25 plus year warranties. So the economic case for solar is just getting stronger and stronger. Looking at a payback of say 4 to 7 years for a high quality system, and then free power from then on. There are various aspects to getting a solar system. We've put together a presentation like this with some zero emissions information and some independent expert information. Very welcome to come along to one of those sessions, and we'll send you a link about that. And honestly, the most simple thing you can do to significantly cut your emissions from our research is simply switch your energy provider from fossil fuel provider over to renewable energy. So more than half of our emissions come from electricity, and of our electricity, about 3/4 is still generated from fossil fuels. So literally just switching your energy provider to support a renewable energy supplier takes your emissions down to basically 0. And you're supporting renewable energy like more solar, more wind farms, etc. We've researched quite a few, we've met quite a few. We have a relationship with Diamond Energy, who are 5-star rated in the Greenpeace Independent Electricity Guide. There's other great ones as well. We will send you a link for info about switching. Any of the renewable energy providers are a great choice. And last of all, we're meeting some fantastic people who are really interested in reducing their emissions, and we've got a bunch of fantastic volunteers. Please stay in touch. You're so welcome to. We've got a Facebook group, we've got a Facebook page, we have a newsletter, which you'll now receive, and we're on Twitter and Instagram. So please feel free to join us online. Stay in the loop about what's going on, ask questions, meet like-minded people. Love to have you aboard. And most excitingly, soon we'll be announcing our first community solar install on a charity. We can't wait to do that. We're so glad that we'll be able to announce that this year. So if you stay in the loop, you hear about that as well. And that's it from me. Everyone will get the zero emission slides. You'll get the Good Car Company slides. You'll get links to all the information we've discussed. Please tell friends and family about the bulk buy. Most people have no idea that you can get affordable EVs from under 20,000 upwards. So please share the news, because we want as many people to know about it before we launch in March. And back, so thank you and goodbye to anyone that has to leave us now. And thank you very much, Anton, and everyone who stays on.